Ho, 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 my friends. Santa Papa John coming at you with another amazing stories. Come in close, grab your coziest blankets, tuck your feet in there like toasted marshmallows, and let your imagination stretch and yawn and get comfortable. Tonight's story is about a dragon. Now, before anybody worries, this is not a scary dragon story. No chasing, no roaring at villagers, no run for your life business. This dragon is more like, well, the kind of dragon who would accidentally knock over a stack of pillows and then apologize to every pillow individually. Yes, that kind of story. The story is called The Dragon Who Learned to Be Gentle. Once upon a time in a bright and breezy valley little village called Kindlebrook, there was a village full of cheerful cottages, gardens bursting with color, and neighbors who waved so often their arms stayed in shape year-round. Kindlebrook sat beside a peaceful forest where birds sang little songs, and trees rustled up like they were whispering secrets to one another. And just beyond the forest, perched on a small sunny hill, lived a small dragon named Brindle. Brindle was not a giant, mountain-sized dragon. He was still growing, which meant he was about as big as a small school bus. Large enough to be impressive, but not so large that he couldn't still get his tail stuck in awkward places. Brindle had glittering green scales, golden eyes, and a tail that swished whenever he was excited, which was very often. And Brindle was excited because he loved the world. He loved butterflies, he loved puddles, he loved clouds shaped like waffles, he loved the smell of fresh bread from the village, he loved the sound of children laughing. Brindle was, in his heart, a friendly giant. But there was one small problem. Brindle didn't know his own strength. He didn't mean to be too much. He didn't mean to stomp too hard, bump too big, hug too tightly, or sneeze like a windstorm. It just happened. For example, one sunny afternoon, Brindle spotted a bunny hopping in the grass. "Oh, hello," Brindle said happily. He leaned down to say hello closer, and his big nose pushed a whole patch of flowers flat. The bunny blinked, hopped away, and Brindle froze. "Oh no, flowers. I'm sorry, flowers." He carefully tried to fluff the flowers back up. They did not fluff. Flowers are not pillows. Brindle sighed and whispered, "I'm learning." Another time, Brindle saw a little bird perched on a fence. Brindle wanted to make a friend, so he gently opened his mouth to say hello. But a tiny puff of warm dragon breath escaped. The bird's feathers poofed up like a dandelion. The bird flew away looking offended. Brindle covered his mouth with his paws. I didn't mean to. I'm not even trying to be dramatic." But the biggest moment, oh ho ho, the moment was really made. Brindle wanted to change. It happened the day he tried to help. In the village of Kindlebrook, a tiny baker named Mrs. Maple ran the bakery. Her cinnamon rolls were famous across 3 valleys and one very picky squirrel community. One morning, Mrs. Maple was carrying a tray of warm bread from the oven to the cooling shelf when her foot caught a loose floorboard. She stumbled, the tray tilted, bread began to slide, and Brindle, who happened to be peeking through the bakery window because the smell was amazing, he saw the whole thing. Brindle's heart jumped. "I'll save it," he shouted. Brindle burst through the bakery door. Very carefully, he thought, and reached out to catch the tray. But when you're a dragon the size of a small bus, you try to move fast, you tend to create a breeze. The breeze whooshed through the bakery, flour puffed into the air like a white cloud, rolling pins rolled, buns bounced, a small jar of sprinkles tilted over and spilled like a tiny rainbow avalanche. Mrs. Maple blinked, flour on her nose. The bread landed safely, but everything else looked like a pastry tornado had visited. Silence. Brindle slowly lowered his claws. Did I help? Mrs. Maple stared at the sprinkle-covered floor, then looked at Brindle, and then, well, she laughed. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. Oh, Brindle, she said, wiping her eyes, you did help. You made quite a scene doing it. Brindle's cheeks warmed beneath his scales. I'm sorry. I wanted to be gentle. I just forgot how big I am. Mrs. Maple's eyes softened. Well then, dear dragon, maybe it's time you practice. Brindle swallowed? Practice? Being gentle? Mrs. Maple nodded. Gentleness is a skill, like baking, or tying your shoes without getting the laces stuck in the knot the size of your head. Brindle whispered, that happened once. Mrs. Maple smiled, then let's help you learn. So Mrs. Brindle did something surprising. She handed Brindle a tiny broom. Tiny, like dollhouse tiny. Brindle blinked. This is for me? Mrs. Maple nodded seriously. Yes, your first lesson is sweeping sprinkles. One sprinkle at a time. Brindle held the tiny broom between two claws like it was a delicate instrument. He tried to sweep. The broom barely moved. Brindle frowned. It's not working. Mrs. Maple said, gentle doesn't mean fast. Slow down. Brindle took a breath. He lowered the broom carefully and pushed softly. A small line of sprinkles moved. Brindle's eyes widened. I did it! Mrs. Maple clapped. You did! Brindle smiled. So big his tail wiggled and knocked over a chair. Brindle froze. Mrs. Maple pointed, and now we practice tail awareness. Brindle whispered, tail awareness? That day, Brindle cleaned up the bakery with Mrs. Maple. He moved slowly. He practiced careful steps. He tried to keep his tail curled politely behind him like a sleeping question mark. And when he left, he felt something new. Hope. Because for the first time, being gentle didn't feel like a mystery. It felt like something he could learn. Word traveled fast in Kindlebrook. Not the, dragon kind of word. More like, hey, Brindle's trying kind of word. The next day, a teacher named Mr. Paddlewick, yes, that was his real name. And yes, he was proud of it. He invited Brindle to the village school. Mr. Paddlewick taught a class full of kids who were curious, clever, and not afraid to ask the kind of questions adults sometimes wish they thought of first. When Brindle arrived, the kids stood in line near the playground. One kid raised their hand. Are you going to breathe fire? Brindle shook his head quietly. Nope, I can toast marshmallows though, gently. Another kid asked, can we touch your scales? Brindle nodded, one at a time, and only if you ask first. The girl whose braids said, my little brother hugs too hard. Brindle perked up. I understand that problem. Mr. Paddlewick smiled. Class, today Brindle is going to help us learn about gentleness. Brindle, would you like to start? Brindle looked at the kids. They weren't afraid. They were interested. Brindle took a careful breath. Hi, I'm Brindle. I'm big, and I have a big heart. But sometimes my big body, does big things by accident. The kids all giggled, like your tail. Brindle nodded, especially my tail. The kids laughed in a friendly way, not a mean way. Brindle felt his shoulders loosen. Mr. Paddlewick held up a feather. Brindle, can you hold this feather without crushing it? Brindle's eyes widened. That's a feather. Mr. Paddlewick nodded. Gentle challenge. Brindle held out one claw. Slowly, carefully, he pinched the feather between two tiny claw tips. The feather stayed whole. The kids cheered. Brindle blinked. I did it! I really did it! Mr. Paddlewick held up a bubble wand. Next challenge, don't pop the bubbles. Brindle nodded seriously. I will respect the bubble. Brindle leaned in and watched bubbles float through the air. His nose twitched. He looked like he wanted to sneeze. Brindle panicked. Oh no! He clapped his claws over his mouth and tried to hold it in. His cheeks puffed, his eyes watered. Then instead of a sneeze, Brindle did the tiniest dragon sniffle you ever seen. It sounded like a kitten trying to be polite. Sniff! The bubbles floated safely. The kids exploded with laughter. Brindle lowered his claws. That was funny. Mr. Paddlewick wiped tears from his eyes. Brindle, that was heroic. Brindle smiled. I saved the bubbles. One kid called a bubble hero, and just like that, Brindle earned a nickname. Bubble Hero Brindle. That helped, because when you're learning something hard, a silly nickname makes it feel lighter. Over the next few days, Brindle practiced gentleness like it was his new favorite sport. He practiced walking through the village without bumping things. He practiced sitting down slowly so that he didn't create a mini earthquake. He practiced speaking softly so he didn't startle birds. He practiced holding tiny objects. One day, Mrs. Maple gave him a teacup. A real teacup with delicate flowers painted on it. Brindle held it in two claws and whispered, I am the teacup guardian. Mrs. Maple nodded seriously. Yes, you are. Brindle took one step. His foot landed softly. No shaking, no wobble. He took another step. Still good. Then a butterfly landed on his nose. Brindle froze so hard he became a dragon statue. Mrs. Maple whispered, Brindle? Brindle whispered back, Butterfly. Mrs. Maple smiled, It likes you. The butterfly flapped his wings gently and flew away. Brindle exhaled slowly. I did not sneeze. Mrs. Maple clapped, Progress! And here's the truth about learning, my friends. Even when you're trying your best, you still mess up sometimes. But Brindle's biggest test came sooner than he expected. One afternoon, the village planned a Kindlebrook picnic. Families gathered in the meadow with baskets and blankets. There were games, music, and a pie contest that Mrs. Maple won every year, which was suspicious, but also delicious. The kids invited Brindle. Come, they said, we want you to be there. Brindle's heart glowed. He wanted to belong. He promised himself gentle steps, gentle voice, gentle tail. Brindle approached the meadow carefully. He stayed near the edge so he wouldn't crowd anybody. Hello, he said softly. A few adults looked surprised, but then smiled. The kids waved. Brindle sat down slowly, like a mountain settling politely. He watched the games, he laughed at the sack race, he even judged the most creative sandwich contest. A sandwich shaped like a star won. Brindle approved. Then a small child, maybe 3 years old, tripped and began to cry. Not a scary cry, just a startled, I fell and it surprised me cry. Brindle's heart squeezed. He leaned forward instinctively. I can help, he said. He reached out one claw towards the child, but the child saw the enormous claw and cried louder. Brindle froze. Too big, too fast, too much. Brindle pulled his claw back and whispered, "Oh no." The child's older sibling ran over, picked them up, and soothed them. The child calmed quickly. But Brindle felt embarrassed. He stared at the grass. Ava, one of the other kids, walked over and sat near Brindle. She didn't lecture, she didn't laugh, she just sat. Then she said, "You wanted to help." Brindle nodded, voice small. "I scared them." Ava shrugged gently. Sometimes helping means using a different kind of gentle. Brindle blinked. A different kind? Ava nodded. "You can help without touching." Brindle thought about it. Ava pointed towards the picnic table. "Want to do something helpful right now?" Brindle swallowed. "Yes." Ava said, "The lemonade pitcher is heavy for the little kids. You should carry it to the end of the table slowly and then let them pour." Brindle nodded. "I can do that." He stood carefully, walked to the table with slow steps, and used two claws to lift the pitcher like it was made of glass. He carried it carefully. No bumps, no swish tail, no sneeze. The kids watched wide-eyed. Brindle sat it down gently. A kid whispered, "He's being careful." Another kid whispered back, "He's the bubble hero." Brindle smiled. Then he stepped back and said softly, "Who would like lemonade?" Hands shot up. Brindle laughed quietly, one at a time. The little kids poured lemonade and giggled. The adults smiled at Brindle like they were seeing him in a new way. Mrs. Maple walked over holding a plate of cookies. "Brindle, that was very gentle." Brindle's eyes shone brightly. "I used a different kind." Mrs. Maple nodded. "That's wisdom." Later, as the sun warmed in the meadow and the sky turned golden, the village children gathered around Brindle. "Tell us a story," they asked. Brindle blinked. "Me?" "Yes," said Lily, "you're a good at gentle." Brindle swallowed. His voice still felt shy sometimes, but he looked at their faces, hopeful, kind, and curious. He took a breath, and then he began softly. "Once upon a time, there was a dragon who wanted to help, but didn't know how to be gentle. The kids leaned in, the adults leaned in too, and Brindle told his story. His real story about learning to slow down, learning to be careful, learning that being gentle was about being small. It was about being aware, being considerate, being kind. And when he finished, the kids applauded. Mr. Paddlewick called speech level gentle success. Everyone laughed. Brindle's tail wigged happily, but this time he curled it carefully around himself. Tail awareness. He learned, and from that day forward, Brindle became something special in Kindlebrook. Not the dragon who scared people, not the dragon who knocked things over, but the dragon who practiced, the dragon who cared, the dragon who learned. Sometimes he still makes mistakes, because learning is like that. But he always apologized, always tried again, and always believed he could improve. And when the new kids visited the village and felt nervous around a dragon, Brindle would sit down in a safe distance and say gently, "You don't have to be afraid. I'm learning to be gentle, and you can take your time too." Ho, 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 that's, my friend, is a dragon with a big heart. The moral of the story is being gentle isn't about being small or perfect. It's about choosing kindness, awareness, and care with the strength you have. Brindle learned that the real courage means slowing down, listening, and trying again when you make mistakes, because a big heart can learn big responsibility. When we practice gentleness through our words, our actions, and patience, we help others feel safe and seen, and we become the kind of friend who makes the world safer, brighter, and better for everyone. Wasn't that amazing, boys and girls, mums and dads? The power of gentleness. Santa Papa John will be back shortly with another wonderful tale. I hope you visit my website, SantaPapaJohn.com, and I can create a story for you. Bye for now. Ho, ho, ho!